All right, so let's get started then. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyid al-Mursaleen. Habibi ila al-Alameen. Abi Qasim al-Mustafa Muhammad wa ala ali bayt al-Tayyibin al-Tahirin. واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. رب أرني الحق حقا فاتبعه والباطل باطلا فاجتنبه ولا تجعله متشابها علي فاتبع هواي بغير علم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So we're continuing, inshallah, with the dua of Al-Iftitah, inshallah, and trying to understand it. Hajj Jamil, you missed a lot yesterday. So you're going to have to take Brother Anwar's notes.
Okay, no problem. No problem.
But inshallah, you didn't forget us from your dua.
Of course, Shaykh.
You could always go back and listen to the recording.
All of you guys are in my dua, alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much. Allah bless you. Okay, so we basically finished the first paragraph, right? Correct?
Yes.
Right? So we determined that the first paragraph is split up into several sections. First section is basically showing gratitude to Allah. Second section is buttering up Allah, like we said. Right? And even the showing gratitude and praise of Allah is all about, segueing into buttering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala up and showing him that we know who he is and what he is to us. And then we moved on to showing gratitude to Allah and telling him that, we are lowly and he is the most lofty, and, just to accept, just give us permission to ask and to do dua. And then again, we went back to, so in that section, really what we're asking Allah is to answer our dua. That whole paragraph is really dedicated to that. Okay. So if you just take that portion, you find that we're praising, we're doing the whole theology, telling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what we believe, how we believe in him, and then asking Allah to accept our dua that we're going to ask and to allow us permission to speak. And then again, he goes back to Imam Salamullah alayhi and talks about Allah's, but this time he talks about specifically Allah's generosity, right? He focuses a lot on his generosity, right? And he also focused on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helping me. So what I was asking for is Allah helping me not fall, right? Aqilni athrati, meaning that prevent me from falling into error. And if I do fall into error, then at least forgive me, pull me out of it, right? Remove those things that have caused me to trip. Correct? So then the Imam Salamullahi alayhi tells me, Allahumma inni as'aluka qalilan min kathir. He says, oh Allah, I ask you for a little, and there's so much more to ask. Right? And then he says, ma hajatin bi ilayhi azima. And I'm letting you know that I have a great need for what I'm asking for. It's exactly like, in modern psychology and in negotiation, what they tell you always when you want to ask for something, don't say, I want this. Say, I need it. Studies show that those who say, I need, are more likely to get what they ask for than those who say, I want. Because there's an urgency to need versus want, right? You might want to go to the Bahamas, but you need to stay at home and quarantine, right? There's a difference, right? So notice the Imam here, how he asks. He says, مَا حَاجَةٍ بِي إِلَيْهِ عَظِيمًا. Knowing full well that I have a great need for it, right? Not want, need. And then he says, مَا حَاجَةٍ بِي إِلَيْهِ عَظِيمًا وَغِنَاكَ عَنْهُ قَدِيمًا. He says, and to you, you don't need. So it's such a beautiful metaphor, again, that the Imam sets up. This is the beauty and the eloquence of the Arabic language and the eloquence of our Imams. He says, when he says, وَغِنَاكَ عَنْهُ قَدِيمٌ, he says that you were always basically able to give, and it wouldn't detract from anything that you have, from your wealth or from your abilities, but because you're unlimited, right? So you never need whatever I'm asking for. So why does the Imam say this? Can anybody tell me? Usually when we ask someone for something, right? and they are thinking twice about giving it to us, why would it be that they wouldn't give us something, or that they would hesitate to give us something that is in their possession? It's not a rhetorical question. You have to answer.
Maybe because they want to keep it for themselves. So like sometimes when you're giving someone asks you for money, you think of twice about it. You're like, maybe I need that money for something.
Right. Ahsanti, Haj. That's right.
Or they
Anybody
might
else?
have like a limited resources, and so they're trying to see who needs it the most.
Right. Ahsanti, that's right too. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has endless resources. And Allah doesn't need the money, right? And that's why the Imam says this. Allah knows. Why is the Imam saying this? So that Allah knows that we know, right? And if I go up to, for example, my father, and I say, you know, Dad, can I have the old car? I mean, you don't use it, you know, it's just sitting in the garage, right? And I really need it to get to school. It's not going to detract from you. I'll pay for the gas, right?
Sheikhna, I have something that I would like to.
Please.
What if it is such as, I don't know if my line of thinking is correct, but maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in a sense, is withholding this this prayer that we ask for Him because He knows what's best for us, and knowing that maybe if He grants us this, it won't be in our best interest.
Yeah, so that's a very good point, and that's a point that I would say if you review the lecture on the things that prevent answering of dua. I mentioned this year at the in the MYC lecture series. Haj Jamil, what lecture was that? Do you remember? It was I can't remember the title. Can't remember the title. It'll come to me. I'll send it to you in the Knowledge Seekers group.
I'll put it in there.
Yeah, Jazakallah. I mentioned the things that prevent, specifically I focused on the sins that prevent Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from answering our dua, from, you know, causing bala, and so on. But when we study dua and the inner workings of it, yes, one of the reasons that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might not respond is A, we might not be ready, or B, He wants to, we mentioned this in prior sessions, that, you know, Allah loves to hear us as we ask, and He wants to see our dedication to Him. The more we ask, the more it is beloved to Him, and the more we become beloved to Him, right? In our dedication. And eventually we said, when will He give it to us? Who remembers? We said, when will He give it to us? We mentioned this, I think, yesterday.
Hit rock bottom?
When you hit rock bottom, and Allah knows you've hit your limit, right? That's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it to you. And we gave the example of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq with that older woman that had a son that went to war. We also, I recommend that you watch the lecture on quarantine versus occultation. Okay, because I actually took Prophet Ayub and took Prophet Musa and took each Prophet Yunus, and we saw in the Holy Quran what is it that they said and where did they get to until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, answered their prayer. And what are the key words that they mentioned? And we mentioned this, I mentioned this almost as homework for all of you, if you recall the other day, but I forgot about it. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have these prophets say, that, you know, there were key words that each said in order to break out of that specific trial, right? Almost like, if you will, if you're playing Xbox or you're playing PlayStation, that there's like a cheat code, right, that allows you to like jump a level or skip that portion of the game. Did anybody check? Did anybody have a chance to check at all? Does anybody pray Salat al-Ghufayla between Maghrib and Isha, the mustahab prayer? Anyone?
Sometimes.
Okay, so in the second rak'ah, there's a verse that we recite after we recite Fatiha. Does anybody know what that verse is? Afwan, in the first rak'ah, sorry, the second, instead of Qul Huwallahu Ahad, we recite a verse. وذنوني إذ جاء مغاضبا فظن أن لن نقدر عليه فنادى في الظلمات أن لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. So what, for example, I'll just give you this one example as a teaser, but you have to go and listen to that lecture, okay? Yunus alayhi salam was in an occultation in the belly of the whale, right? All he did was dua at that point. What else are you going to do? You're stuck in the belly of a whale, right? You have time to kill. So all he's doing is dua to Allah to do what? To keep him in the belly of the whale or to release him? To release him, right? So what does he say? Once he says that there is no God but Allah, I do not ascribe a partner to Allah, and he says these key words, Oh Allah, I oppressed myself. I was of the oppressors. This is a prophet. Who is he going to oppress? Right? He's infallible. And yet, he teaches us that if I say, La ilaha illallah, just say, no, feel it in your heart, really believe it, and then say, oh Allah, I became of the oppressors. Inni kuntu min al-zalimin. I was of the oppressors. This admission of my lowliness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that position of being, and notice, he repeated over and over and over and over until Allah released him, until the sincerity was totally believable by Allah, right? Not that he didn't have sincerity in his heart. I mean, he was a prophet. But what is Allah teaching us? He's teaching us the importance of the repetition and the importance of understanding where we fit on the totem pole of life. Make sense? Okay, Brother Ali? Yeah? You got that?
I'm sorry, Shaykhna, could you please repeat that?
Ya khayy, you ask the question and you leave. Okay. I gave you such a long answer. You want me to repeat? La ya Ali. Okay, it's recorded. You're going to have to review the recording later.
Yeah, I was asking him a question. I just came running in.
La ya Ali. Ya Ali.
How many Alis in one video?
Ya Ali Jum'ah.
Habibi Shaykh.
Shaykhna, samahna, but I heard most of what you said. What you're getting across is that, if I'll repeat it, just to show you that I was paying attention. So for the most part is that there are multiple different ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would ask of us, like certain cheat codes, like how you're mentioning, that help us have our dua granted. So as you're mentioning, there are certain idea that the Anbiya that used to say, and one of the ways that would make our dua answered was if exactly what Sister Tala was mentioning, I would hit rock bottom, for example, would be one of the ways.
And then you were mentioning the verse of Nabi Yunus, right? And I came in the middle. Sorry. You were talking about the verse. Is it kind of like admitting it when you're in kind of rock bottom? So when he's in the darkness, فَنَادَى فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ
لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني
الظالمين. Yeah.
أحسنت.
So it's as if like when you're in those dark times, like you said, and what Ali was mentioning, and the only one that's going to pull you and kind of fish you out, you got that pun, fish you out, is in the belly of the whale. Yeah, Allah's gonna fish you out of these things. So
أحسنت. Good job. خلاص, you guys are forgiven. All right.
And I no minus points, huh?
No minus points, no.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, let's see. We have.
How many of you does it take to figure out what Sheikh Aous said? There's like 3 or 4 of you in the room now. I lost count.
They're a team. Knowledge seekers are a team. They back each other up.
That's good, but that doesn't seem like social distancing to me.
Look. I'm sorry, Sheikh. Before we continue, I've been seeing these people for the past 3 weeks, and we have our schedules in sync, so it's really safe. Alhamdulillah. So
Alhamdulillah.
possible, trust me.
No, I didn't ask you this because I figured, you since you guys were sharing a screen, I figured you guys were responsible enough to understand, the whole idea behind the social distancing. That's why I didn't question it. So no worries. Okay, so at the end of the road, it's your choice anyway. If you get sick, you're only going to end up taking care of each other. and making dua for each other too. So, and then you'll say, Allahumma inni kuntu min al-zalimin. Allah, I oppressed my others. Okay, so Brother Ali Bazzi says, is it because they think you are using them, but when you highlight your position in respect to theirs, it shows you're serious and it shows you're not just asking for the sake of asking? Yeah, ahsan. That's right, Brother Ali. And Jamil, can you send it on here, please? The link? Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's right. Trials and Tribulations lecture. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's continue then with the dua. So, Allahumma inni as'aluka qalilan min kathir. Oh, Allah, I ask you for a little. You have so much, right? And there's so many other things I can ask for, but I'm just asking for this. That I think just, right? That's basically what I'm doing. Okay. And then I'm saying, and I have a great need for it, and you don't have the need for it, right? And you've never had the need for it. You don't have a need for anything. وَهُوَ عِنْدِي كَثِيرٌ. And to me, it's huge, it's big, it's a lot, right? This little that I'm asking for you is nothing, and you don't need it, but for me, it's huge, right? وَهُوَ عَلَيْكَ سَهْلٌ يَسِيرٌ. And for you, it's easy, right? For you, as the Iraqis say, zalata, right? It's nothing, right? You could just give it to me. No sweat, no skin off somebody else's back. Allah doesn't have a back, so. And then what does he say? He says, وَهُوَ عَلَيْكَ سَهْلٌ يَسِيرٌ. Allahumma. Here comes the Allahumma again. Let's get ready, right? Because now the Allahumma, what am I doing? I'm doing tafkhim again. I'm building Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Astaghfirullah, of course, we're not building Allah, but we're buttering him up again. Allahumma inna afwaka an dhanbi wa tajawuzaka an khati'ati wa safhaka an dhulmi wa satraka ala qabihi amali wa hilmika an kathiri jurmi. I'm going to read this whole part and then I'll translate it for you. عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجب منك. Here, what is he doing? He's buttering up Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Imam is saying, look, in order for you to get what you want, right, you have to admit your lowliness, right? And how Allah literally takes you. Remember, أقلني عثرتي, remove me from, whatever sins I've fallen into, or whatever trip hazards are in front of me, protect me from them. Here, what I have to do, the Imam says, is now you have to talk to Allah again, but now you need to bring it up a notch because you want your dua to be answered. You've asked for something. Now notice what the Imam says. He says, oh Allah, your forgiveness for my sins, you looking beyond my errors, you forgiving my oppression, and you hiding the worst of my deeds and actions, and your tolerance for so much of my criminality, jurmi, right? عندما كان من خطئي, when the reason why this happened was from my mistakes, وعمدي, and because I did many of these things on purpose, أطمعني, even though, look here, he says, look, I know that I made these mistakes and I made them by choice, and I know that I did them on purpose, and yet, oh Allah, you were forgiving. You looked beyond it. You accepted my repentance and you hid my ill deeds from others. You protected me from being judged by others, right? And you were tolerant of my criminality. Notice these 5 things Allah does, right? Despite the fact that I knew what I was doing. Despite the fact that I literally, when I break a law in society, right, I'm considered a criminal, correct? So why is it that when I break one of Allah's laws, I don't consider myself a criminal? If you think about that, that's really profound. That the Imam uses the word وَحِلْمَكَ عَنْ كَثِيرِ جُرْمِ. Not one jurm, not one criminal act of disobedience and law breaking. Kathir, I've done so much. عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي, when it was from my mistake, it was my error, I did it on purpose. أطمعني, and yet you did all this, you forgave me, right? That made me greedy. أطمعني. For what? في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك. To ask you for that which I don't deserve from you. That's it. Drop the mic. This is a drop the mic moment.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى
يعني subhanallah. Your generosity, oh Allah, your forgiveness, your tolerance, your kindness, your willingness to look beyond my errors and my sins and my criminality is what has made me want to ask you and know that you will respond to me, right? And to ask of you that which I know I don't deserve. في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك. And not, now what does he do? Now he starts counting all of the things that Allah has done for him despite, and does for us despite ourselves, despite our sins, despite our ill deeds. الذي رزقتني من رحمتك. For you're the one that sustained me and gave me rizq from your mercy. Notice the mercy comes in again, creeps in again. Because we know the Imam is telling us, look, Allah did this for you because of His mercy. وَأَرَيْتَنِي مِنْ قُدْرَتِكَ. And you showed me your abilities. وَعَرَّفْتَنِي مِنْ إِجَابَتِكَ. And because you have made me know you and your generosity from every time I've asked you for something and you respond. And I want to ask you this. How many times does Allah respond to us, and yet we get to a point where when we ask, we say, oh Allah, why aren't you responding to me? And we get to a point where we're like, will Allah ever respond to me? And we actually question. Even though we know for a fact that Allah, every time, every single time, Allah responds. Now sometimes the response might not be what we expected. But at the end of the road, we know that Allah is all purposeful and all wise and all just. And so He wouldn't burden us with more than what we can handle. So even when He gives us, we know that it's for our benefit. And knowing that, right, I ask myself, how can I ever doubt that Allah will answer? How can I ever? This is what the Imam is telling me here. Yeah, I'm asking you for that which I don't deserve, oh Allah. But you are the one that sustained me with your mercy, and you showed me your ability to do the things that no one else can do. And you have made me know you and your kindness and generosity and ability and dedication to your creation, even though you don't need it. From your responses, every single time I asked, you gave. Even when I didn't ask, you gave. And then what does he say? He said, the Imam says, فَصِرْتُ أَدْعُوكَ آمِنًا. And so, as a result, I felt secure and safe in asking you. Imam Ali Salamullahi alayhi, he says, when you ask, when you want something and you want to ask someone, don't ask someone who doesn't have it to give it. Because there's a rule, a principle, فَاقِدُ الشَّيْءِ لَا يُعْطِيهِ. A person who doesn't have something can't give it away. Right? If I want good akhlaq, I have to go to someone who has good akhlaq. If I want to learn good akhlaq. If I want to be a great basketball player, I have to train and be mentored by a great basketball player or a good basketball player. If I want to be great, then I have to train under someone who's great. But to expect to be great by training with someone who is mediocre, that's never going to happen. Right? That's what the Imam is saying. He's saying, look, when you want to ask someone, first, ask from someone who has it to give it. That's number one. Number two, in another short saying, he says that when you ask from someone, ask from someone who's generous. Don't ask for money from someone who's a miser. Right? Because what's going to happen? Are you going to get it? Even if he has it, he won't give it to you. صح? Right? So who is more generous than Allah? And who is more giving than Allah? Correct? So first and foremost, I ask Allah. You say, Sheikh, but at the end of the road, I have to, sometimes get a loan, for example. And I have to, at the very least, go to a bank to get a loan for my mortgage. Right? Does that mean I've gone against Allah? No. Allah permits me to do this. Right? But Allah gave me the aql, the intellect, to realize that this is a system. I can use other systems. This isn't the only system I can use. Right? Not everybody who buys a house takes out a mortgage, for example. Okay? Another example. If I, for example, want something from my dad, right? I know that if I ask my dad versus if I ask a stranger, my dad is more likely to give me than if I ask a stranger. So if I go out in the streets, and we see this on the corner of Greenfield and Ford Road, right? You see these guys, they're holding, and also Greenfield or the service road on Southfield and Warren. They're standing, they're holding their cardboard, right? They're saying, what is it? Get money for food, or I'm homeless, give me money or whatever, right? It's a game of numbers, right? They're asking strangers. Most strangers don't give them. And if they give them, what do they give them? A couple of quarters that aren't going to affect it. No, if he puts his hand in his wallet and a $5 comes out, right? They're like, oh, no, this is too much. They put it back in, right? Let me see if I have any change. Right, Hajj Mike, right? Of course, Hajj Mike, he pulls out his Ben Franklin. He doesn't have that problem.
Yeah, I got money to burn.
Right? No, don't burn it. Give it to those in need. So, but Allah doesn't have that problem, right? He says, the Imam, when he says, ask for someone from someone who's generous, that's what we should do. So, if I ask, for example, if I ask from someone who's a believer, you say to me, Sheikh, sometimes I get a loan from a believer and they never let me forget. And I get a loan from a stranger, right? And they never even ask me to repay it. And actually, even if I do, I'm on a payment plan, they don't harass me. Collections doesn't come for months, right? So why is it that when I take from a believer, they're this way with me? Right? Allah mentions this in the Holy Quran. He mentions that, that there are people who, when you entrust them with giving them money, right, they make as though they forget you. This is the other side of the equation. Right? They make as though they forget you. In another verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, when you take a loan or you make an agreement, make sure that you actually write it. Why? To prevent this from happening. Okay. When you take a loan, our fiqh tells us always make sure that there's an allotted time. A loan can't be open-ended. It has to be repaid at a specific time. Now, when that time comes, you can forgive the person. Islam highly recommends that one forgives others of their debts. And that if your friend has a debt, or you hear of those who have a debt, and you have the ability to repay it for them, then Islam highly recommends us to do so. It's all part of our social etiquette, subhanAllah. To actually be able to even help people, when, for example, if I have, let's say, $10,000 and it's almost my homestay, it's highly recommended that before it's my homestay that I give that money to someone as a loan called Qard Hasan. That way I don't end up paying khums on it, even though khums is going to go to those who need it, right? But that way you're actively looking within your community for those who need help. I know a believer, may Allah bless them, without mentioning any names. Before I went to Najaf, they called me and they said, before I went to Najaf to study, at the very beginning, they wanted to meet with me. I sat with them and stuff, and they said to me, I have $10,000 that every year before my homestay, I give as a loan to couples that want to get married. And this year I thought, I just got repaid, and I was thinking it would be great to help you. I said, no. You need to give it to these married couples. They need it more than me. Alhamdulillah, I'm fine, right? But look at the concept. Like, literally this person would seek out married couples that need, or couples that need to get married and need the money to start off their lives. This is so Islamic. It's so highly recommended. And that's why it's called Qard Hasan, which means that it's a good loan. It's a goodwill loan, right? Which means that, and in Islam, when you don't harass the person, like from the time you give it until the time you receive it back, you don't harass the person at all, right? You're not to talk about it. It's makruh to do so. And then when it's time to repay that debt, that person the person who gave the money is required to ease the situation on that person and say, listen, if you're unable to pay, it is okay. You know, to forgive them, if not all of it, then a portion of it. And it's also recommended on the other side that the person who took the loan, that when they repay it, that they actually do something nice for the person, either by giving them a gift, you know, or showing them a show of appreciation. This is part of the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So then here, what does the Imam say after that? He says, وَأَرَيْتَنِي مِنْ قُدْرَتِكَ وَعَرَّفْتَنِي مِنْ إِجَابَتِكَ. Then he says, فَصِرْتُ أَدْعُوكَ آمِنًا. Right? So now I ask for you safely, knowing that you will respond, based on the fact that you've responded to me before. فَإِنْ أَبْطَعَ عَنِّي. Here comes what Brother Ali was talking about. فَإِنْ أَبْطَعَ عَنِّي. If I don't receive what I want as quickly as I want, right? What does he say? He says, عَنَيْتُ بِجَهْلِي عَلَيْكَ. With my ignorance, I start saying, why aren't you giving me? Right? I start going out of my way, and shaitan whispers to me, and I start thinking, رَبِّ أَهَانَنِي, as in the chapter of Al-Fajr. Right? وَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ إِذَا مَا ابْتَلَاهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَّمَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّ أَكْرَمَنِي. And as for man, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is generous to him and gives him plenty and sustenance, that he says, Allah was generous with me. وَأَمَّا إِذَا مَا ابْتَلَاهُ فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّ أَهَانَنِي. And as for the other side, when he also tries me, so once he tried me with wealth and with giving me, and next he tries me with a deficiency in wealth, right? And he tightens that noose of sustenance. What happens with me? I say, oh, Allah has humiliated me. Rabbi ahanan. Right? But with my jahl, with my ignorance, I do this. The Imam is saying. When I do this out of ignorance. And then he says, وَلَعَلَّ الَّذِي أَبْطَعَ عَنِّي هُوَ خَيْرٌ لِي لِعِلْمِكَ بِعَاقِبَةِ الْأُمُورِ. And perhaps the reason why you were slow in responding to me is because it was better for me. Right? Because you know the outcomes of things. فَلَمْ أَرَ مَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. Here I come again. So, look, I'm justifying. Even when Allah doesn't give me, I say, oh Allah, you don't give me. And I fall into the error of telling you, oh Allah, and accusing you that you're not giving me what I need. Because remember, it's a need. So when you don't get what you need from someone, you end up becoming more accusatory, right? So imagine, for example, with your siblings or with someone at work, if you tell them, I need A, B, C, and D from you. And when they don't give it to you, what do? You say, well, I've waited and waited. I gave you multiple opportunities. I emailed you, you still haven't given me what I need, right? But here, in this case, Allah, if He slows the process down and doesn't give me what I need, it's not because of the fact that, I'm the dictator and telling to Allah, I need A, B, C, D, right? And I know what's best. He trumps me, for lack of a better word, right? He has the greater right upon me because He knows more than I do. He really knows if I need it or not. I don't really know. I'm assuming that I need it, right? Allah knows if I need it. And so when He slows the answer, it's because of His knowledge of the outcomes of things. I might need it now, yes. I might see that I need it now, but the outcomes might be bad for me. And then what does He say? He says, and therefore, my conclusion is, فَلَمْ أَرَ مَوْلًا كَرِيمًا أَصْبَرْ عَلَى عَبْدٍ لَئِيمٍ مِنْكَ عَلَيَّ يَا رَبِّ. And here the Imam Salamullah alayhi, he does something that kind of puts us in our place. He says, for I have never seen a master that is so generous and so patient when dealing with a slave that is not just lowly. La'im is a person. Does anybody know what la'im is? Let me put it out there and see if anybody knows what la'im is while I plug in my phone. Does anybody know what a la'im is?
No morals?
No, a person
Or is
who
it like hard-headed?
hard-headed,
Mean?
يعني dissatisfied.
dissatisfied. No.
Somebody that's
Does it mean like mean? Like someone who's mean?
When you look at someone, you say, "Khayy, anta shu la'im," meaning that this is a person who does stuff to spite people. Okay. So here the Imam is saying, look, you need to think, look at how he's telling me to talk to myself. I'm reminded by this wonderful book called Al-Arba'una Hadith by Grand Ayatollah Khomeini, may Allah rest his soul. How he speaks to himself, how he addresses himself in that book is just beyond, just beyond. Because, he describes himself as being lowly. He describes himself as being, impatient. He describes himself as being, this is what the Imam is telling me. He's like, look, why does he say la'im? A la'im is a person who, when someone does good towards them, they don't repay them with good. They spite them. That's a la'im. So am I la'im or not? When Allah gives me all of the stuff that I need, not that I want, because it turns out much of what I think I need, I really want. I might not necessarily need, because Allah knows the consequences of things and I don't. I know that I have been a lawbreaker with Allah, right? I've broken His laws. I've been disobedient to Him, right? Even though He's generous with me, He's kind to me, He's tolerant, He's merciful, He's forgiving. So am I la'im or not?
Sheikh,
I don't know about you. Huh?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I wanted to ask a question.
Yeah.
So if somebody is a la'im, does that withhold dua as well?
Good, yeah.
And
Definitely.
how would we know if we are of that category?
Well, you just need to make a checklist, Brother Ali. Make a list of all the things that Allah has given you. Make a list of all the things you've asked Allah to give you and how many times He responded to you. And make a list of how many times you went through the struggle and came out stronger and how many times you went through a struggle and came out weaker.
You always come out of the struggle stronger.
Didn't we discuss like yesterday or the day before that we always come out of a trial stronger?
Always. Alhamdulillah.
Well, Sheikh, there's an example that one time a scholar gave in a lecture. I just got into the room, by the way, but the scholar once described of like the life circumstances sometimes that happen to you. He gave an example of a pot of boiling water. And then he gave an example of an egg, a carrot, and then he gave coffee beans, for example. He said sometimes the trials of life, sometimes people are in the category of carrots. Sometimes people are the egg, and then sometimes people are the coffee bean. The hot water and the boiling water in the pan is like the bala and the trials and the hardships. If you throw the carrot in, there are those people that when they're tested with bala, what happens when you put a carrot in hot water? They become very fragile and soft, and they break easily. That's what happens to the carrot. There's that group of people. Then he gave an example of the egg. When you put an egg inside the boiling water, what happens? It becomes hard inside. So sometimes people become hard and bitter when they go through bala and they go through trials. And then there are those people like the coffee beans. You throw it inside of the pot of the boiling. You throw it inside the pot of the boiling water, and then what happens to the water? The water becomes like it changes color, becomes coffee itself. So the coffee beans, they in a way like they take over the bala, what's happening, and then they make the most out of what's happening. So there are those people like the carrots and the eggs, and those that are like the coffee beans, they take over and they actually benefit and make what they can out of the situation. So
Ahsant. Although, you know, I like hard-boiled eggs. I love the taste. You know,
I
and
hate
coffee is something we all need to wake up. So
Yeah.
at the end of the road, each one came out with a benefit. Right? So it's a good example, but I can look at the benefits also in that example. But it's a good example. I like it.
What are the benefits?
And if an egg becomes nutritious for you to eat, before you couldn't eat it, unless you're like Rambo, right? Or Rocky, right? The carrot becomes soft and nutritious. Its water is full of vitamins now. Look, anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates, once it's under pressure, it's going to be beneficial. The problem is because they don't have a choice. They're programmed to be that way. But me, I have a choice. I corrupt Allah's program. Think about it.
Definitely.
Right?
You made me like hard-boiled eggs and carrots a lot more.
Yeah. Right? It's a good example, but in reality, each one of these has a benefit, right? Correct? Each one of these has a benefit at the end of the road. So why is it that they have a benefit? Because they're programmed to be beneficial. Whether if you put them in hot water, they're going to be beneficial. If you put them in cold water, they're going to be beneficial somehow. Everything Allah creates has some sort of benefit. Okay? The problem is why? Because they don't have a choice. Allah programmed them that way. But me, I have a choice. Right? That's ahsant. A beautiful story. It was very good, very beneficial. Now you made me crave coffee, and I'm fasting.
Allah will teleport to Najaf and give you a cup.
Okay, so let's see what Brother Ali Bazzi says. I saw an example you gave once about charcoal and diamond. A piece of charcoal crumbles, but a diamond can drill through mountains. Ahsant. Yeah. Ahsant. That is a good example. And I can't claim to that example. A lot of people have used it over the course of probably centuries, you know, so, or at least when diamonds were discovered and used to cut through mountains, but yeah. Is the la'im someone who is spiteful? Yeah. Okay. All right. So, where were we? Let's see. We were at... فلم أرى مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك يا رب. And this is how now the Imam, because I'm going to question. I'm going to say, oh yeah, why am I la'im? Why am I spiteful, Shaykhna? Why is the Imam saying this about me? Right? Why is he like detracting from the value of a believer? I told you, look at all the times that Allah has given us and what we have done towards him. Look at what the Imam is saying here. Now look at how he talks about himself. And by doing so, he's teaching us how to talk to ourselves. فَلَمْ أَرَ مَوْلًا كَرِيمًا أَصْبَرَ عَلَى عَبْدٍ لَئِيمٍ مِنْكَ يَا رَبِّ إِنَّكَ تَدْعُونِي فَأُوَلِّ عَنْكَ. Oh Allah, you call upon me to come to the straight path. But what do? I ignore you and I walk away. فَأُوَلِّ عَنْكَ وَتَتَحَبَّبُ إِلَيَّ فَأَتَبَغَّضُ إِلَيْكَ. And you make yourself beloved to me, and yet I make myself hated to you. وَتَتَوَدَّدُ إِلَيَّ. Now, if you recall from last series, we spoke about the difference between tawaddud and tahabbub, or hub and mawadda, right? Who remembers the difference between the two? Anyone? Haj Jamil, you were in that discussion.
Oh, was I?
I can't remember. I'm just kidding. Right? Anybody remember the difference? Sister Melek, Sister Tala, Sister Isra. That's what I used to do, by the way, when I didn't know the answer to a question, what Sister Isra is doing. I'd like look down in my book like I'm writing. Right? Anyone?
Wasn't hub like more of like an emotion, and then mawadda comes like with rahma. And then we talked about how there's like, I think we were talking about which one's more important. And it's like you can have mawadda towards anybody, but love, like, or hub, it only comes to like someone that you have a relationship with, that you've known, you've had time to grow that feeling towards. But when it's mawadda, like, that's just something that you should have towards everybody.
So yeah, close. You went in and out. The Wi-Fi came in and out a little. Okay. So basically, mawadda is literally to be the source of showing kindness and care to others, which includes showing them love. Tawaddud, if you look it up in almaani.com, they say at-tahabbub, to make yourself loved and liked to others. How do you do that? It's through action, through kind words, right? That's tawaddud. So when وَتَتَوَدَّدُ إِلَيَّ, right? Here, what is the Imam saying? He's saying, look, I recognize, right? I recognize the fact that the reason why I'm la'im is because you call upon me and I ignore you. I ignore you. I walk away. Right? How would you feel when you're talking to someone like a sibling or a friend or even a father and they just walk away from you? As you're talking, they just walk away. How does that make you feel? Terrible, right? Disrespected, belittled, humiliated. Do I need to use more words? So why do I do that with Allah? He calls me to His way, and I say, not now. I'm not going to be religious now. I'm going to be religious later. I got money to go to Hajj, but you know what? Not now. I can go. It's totally cool, but I'll leave it to later. The proverbial slap, on my face when I talk to someone and they ignore me and they just walk away. Is there any greater form of humiliation that someone can do to somebody else? Why do I do it with Allah? I don't accept it for myself. How do I do it with Allah when He tells me, you need to pray on time, right? If you want to reach high levels, you need to have khushu'. You need to remember me, and yet what do? Right? I disrespect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And here the Imam uses tahabbub and tawaddud. Tahabbub is a verb here. So, oh Allah, you actively try to make yourself beloved to me. You work hard at it. Right? And yet, atabaghadu ilayk, I make myself hated to you. And not only that, you show me caring. Even though I treat you this way, you do tawaddud. Right? You go even beyond, because al-wud is a more encompassing concept that includes a lot of mercy in you being the one that takes the first step. Listen, I can be infatuated with someone and think that it's love, right? Or I can work hard to establish a relationship with someone by showing them kindness and generosity and so on and so forth, right? And this is what tawaddud is. Tawaddud, as Imam al-Sadiq salamullahi alayhi says in one narration by way of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as is mentioned in the book of Al-Kafi in the chapter on tawaddud, that at-tawaddudu nisfu deen, that half of my deen is what? Is to be kind to others, to show caring to others, to make myself beloved to others. So I remember when I mentioned this in the last discussion series, I said to Hajj Jamil, when I walk in and I see the beautiful, bright face, mu'min face of Hajj Jamil, I say, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I love seeing Hajj Jamil. Look at that smile. Look at how happy it made him. Right? This is tawaddud. Right? And it's tahabbub. Did it not make you feel warm and fuzzy inside, Hajj? Right?
Yes. Yeah. And it goes the same for me to you.
And the action of doing that means I went out of my way to make Hajj Mike. Wallah, every time I see your beautiful face, I feel optimistic that life is going to be great. Right? As long as I say it with sincerity, right? It goes from the heart to the heart. Right? It goes from the heart to the heart. When somebody tries to do that and they're just you know, they're insincere, you sense it, correct? But when it's sincere, ya khayy, it goes right into the heart. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the unlimited in His love and unlimited in His tawaddud, that means how many times has He done this for me? This is what makes me that person who is la'im. Because when someone repeats over and over and over and over and over and acts multiple acts of kindness and love and care, and I just shun them, and yet they keep coming back, then what am I? Right? I'm reminded we had some cases of addiction, and these families, they would come to me and say to me, Shaykhna, no matter, they had this brother who was addicted to heroin. No matter what we do, you know, he just doesn't get it. He just won't come back, you know. So we say, oh, you know, it's the drugs. They don't make them realize, what drug am I taking that causes me to treat Allah this way? What, the drug of life? The love of materialism? The belief that I own time when I don't? Right? What is it? What's wrong with me? And I'm not asking you, I'm asking myself. What is wrong with me? I'm genuinely asking myself, Aous, what is wrong with you? Why is it that you can't be kind to others? When you know Allah is always kind to others. What are you, better than Allah? Why is it that when someone comes and puts their hand out for you to give them, you don't just give and you have to hesitate? Ya khayi, what's wrong with you? Right, Anwar? Why is it that I forget? And why is it that I'm that guy sometimes too, that when someone wants to give, instead of saying, Bismillah, that's great, give him more. Oh, here, take some money. I say, hey, just keep in mind, don't give too much, you know. They might get used to it. Why does Allah not do that with me? Yet I do it with His creations. I was walking in Najaf, and I was walking with someone, and this poor person came to me, this young boy, you know, put his hand out, and this guy next to me, he said, don't give him. Because these guys, they all work for a network. I said, Yakhay, what do I care if he works for a network or not? You know, just instilling that sense of negativity and doubt in someone else. Yakhay, what level of lu'um is this? And I don't even realize that I might be that guy one day. I might have done that one day. Just listening to him and allowing the negativity to enter my heart, you know, to me, it's problematic. So the Imam Salamullah alayhi, then he says what? He says, إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك. You make yourself beloved to me, you show me your kindness, your care, your generosity, and I don't accept, I reject. كأن لي التطول عليك. As though I have the right to treat you in such a manner. And tatawul is a very strong word. In Arabic, when we say الطاول علي, it means تجاوز علي. It means that he overstepped his boundaries and did something that is not within his rights. He disrespected me. As though I have the right to disrespect you, Allah, and to treat you this way. Right? فَلَمْ يَمْنَعْكَ ذَلِكَ. And despite that, that did not prevent you مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ لِي, from showing me mercy. وَالْإِحْسَانِ إِلَيْهِ, and giving me righteously, being kind and generous to me. وَالتَّفَضُّلِ عَلَيْهِ, and giving me from your favors. Be what? Why? How come? بِجُودِكَ, by your generosity. وَكَرَمِكَ. Jud and generosity, they mean the same thing. But Jud can be even more encompassing than generosity, than karam. فَارْحَمْ عَبْدَكَ الْجَاهِلِ. So please have mercy on your ignorant slave. وَجُدْ عَلَيْهِ بِفَضْلِ إِحْسَانِكَ, and be generous upon him. Give him from your favors by your goodness, O Allah, towards others, your righteousness. إِنَّكَ جَوَادٌ كَرِيمٌ. You are the all generous. Again, all generous. Jawad meaning more generous, and Kareem meaning generous as well. So now finishing the second paragraph, right? I'm curious, what have you uncovered within yourselves when the Imam is teaching you how to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how to look at yourself? Don't be shy.
Sometimes, Sheikhna, I think because as humans we act on the senses with different people in our lives. I don't know, the line for me, it is as if you are overreaching me. I think that's what it is. Where is it? Yeah, it's as if you are overreaching me. It's like I don't know. Personally, it's like we only think of human interaction, and it's like, man, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is like a whole different. I don't know how to explain it, Sheikh, honestly. But like if a human overreaches you, or tries to ask so much of you, or like helping you out so much, like overly, that's a human. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a whole different story, And I think right now, just reading that, I just realized the weight of that statement.
Okay, so what do you understand from the translation? Because I just noticed it's كأن لي التطول عليك, as if you are overreaching me.
Mm-hmm.
What do you understand from that translation when he says as though you are overreaching me?
So what do I understand as though you are overreaching? Doesn't that just mean like taking advantage of?
But isn't it kind of like the word عم يتطاول, for example, like Lebanese sometimes in their culture?
Same word.
If they they get into argument or whatever, and then they start picking at each other, they say هذا عم يتطاول علي, like he's taking advantage.
He's insulting me. يتطاول يعني he's insulting.
You're taking too much advantage now, as if I owe you something.
But the thing is though, like it's not a negative sense, right, Sheikhna? This is completely positive.
No, it's very negative. This is an incorrect translation. As if you are overreaching me. Aslan, even the person speaking has been changed around. This is why I told you some of these translations, they're not 100% accurate. As though you are overreaching me means as though you are overstepping the boundaries. Okay, and overreaching doesn't mean to insult. Here, كأن لي التطول عليك, as though it is my right to insult you, as though I have the right to take advantage of you. That's what it actually means. So this translation is incorrect.
Okay, and because I made this mistake and you corrected me, inshallah, I'm going to retain this information. Inshallah, it'll hold with me.
And by the way, when I'm going through, I'm not looking at the translation from du'as. Okay, I'm giving you the flat out literal translation and the meaning, as opposed to just a verbatim sort of literal translation. Okay, so I appreciate you mentioning that word, because it made me remember. And now, I need to look at the translation that he's putting up, because if you're not taking notes, then you're going to depend on just the translation on du'as. Okay, and I don't want you to do that. I mentioned that before. I told you there might be some errors. The brothers at du'as, or the sisters, they try their best, obviously, to try to provide for everyone. So, but this happens sometimes. Okay, it's okay as long as we catch it and we correct it.
Allah.
Okay. All right. Any other input?
Can you repeat that again? Because I kind of got mixed up there when you're saying as if you are overreaching me. Who's overreaching me?
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't make sense. That's what I was saying. The conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when the Imam basically gives me this whole dissertation presenting, all of my ill actions towards Allah, right? And all of the good actions Allah has done towards me, means that he's overreaching me. It's as though I'm insulting him, as though it is for me to treat him this way. And it's not. And that's what the Imam is saying. He says, as though I act this way as though it's my right to treat you this way. And it's not my right to treat you this way. Right?
Yep, I got it.
Okay. See, we have a message. Allah ma'akum. La tansuna min ad-du'a, Sister Hadi. I think for me, I'll tell you for me, when I read Dua Abi Hamza al-Thamani, this part specifically, it really hits home because I really think about, the decisions that I make, and sometimes, even when you're by yourself and you don't realize what you're doing, you don't sit back and contemplate. This is one of the beauties of the du'as of Imam Sajjad Salamullah alayh, is that they really make you question yourself and really think about the things that you do. Whether you have the even right to do them or not. That's the beauty of having the treaties of rights and having Sahifa Sajjadiyya. It really, really trains you, on how to think and how to speak to Allah and what your behaviors and manners reflect. Sometimes you don't consider these things. Sometimes you just do them and you don't really give a second thought to that word that you said to your wife or to your sister or to your brother, or the lack thereof too. Like you not, for example, picking up the phone and taking the first step. Allah always takes the first step towards us. Why don't we take the first step towards, His own creations, right? I mean, if Allah says, if you take a step towards me, I'll take 1,000 towards you. Proverbially speaking, of course, then why is it that I can't take a first step towards one of His creations also? And why is it that I can't take that first step towards Allah? Right? Because my act of disobedience, my criminal acts of breaking Allah's laws, right? Really, I'm overstepping my boundaries. And then Allah tells me the importance of connecting with my family, of being good to my parents, and very easily Allah says in the Holy Quran, in that verse about how to treat the parents, He says, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. Don't even say uff to them. Like don't roll your eyes, don't sigh, don't, that if you really contemplate about it, you're thinking that's like the smallest thing, the smallest act of defiance that anyone could ever do, right? Like I remember when I was younger and my dad would talk to me and I'd like roll my eyes or something and he'd say to me, "Did you just do that?" And I'm thinking like, how many times did I do that and I didn't even notice? And this is not just an act of defiance towards my dad. It was an act of defiance towards Allah. How many times did my father expect me to help him to do something or offer, and I didn't? Or my mother, and I didn't. Wallah, it saddens me. It does really sadden me, like when I reflect on it. Because you realize like you could have made a choice to be a better person. And even though today we're talking about this, and I'm optimistic that when I leave you, that I'm going to look at life differently, and I'm going to look at what Allah has given me differently. And remember, we made the pact that we're going to live in awe, right, of Allah in the last series. We're going to live in awe, recognizing the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And, I wonder, like, when I leave this talk, am I going to remember I'm going to fall back into being heedless again? It worries me. I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to break out of our heedlessness, to really see ourselves in the reality of what we do, and to really connect with the words of the Imam Salamullah alayhi, so that this month of Ramadan, in these last 10 days, we can truly be closer to him, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we thank Imam al-Sajjad and Allah for providing us the profound words of Imam al-Sajjad Salamullah alayhi, so that we can learn more about ourselves and what we do. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلي يا ربي على سيدنا محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين والفاتحة على أرواح المرحومين اللهم